Oh, and then I get to Penn, and it was great. I didn't have money to go visit and all that other stuff beforehand. I read a lot of books, talked to my friends. They said it was great. It's over the border. You'll be out of Jersey. Okay, fine, we're cool. Um, and then I chose engineering because my father felt like um, you can get a good if you major in engineering, and then you can, help the family. And so that was kind of the thing. I mean, I liked it. I liked math much better than science, but I liked it. I wanted to go to grad school, but it was not financially feasible. It was not a realistic goal. It meant more money, more debt on top of what I already had. It meant another 2 to 4 years of not working, and so that was a real concern. Um, and I didn't necessarily want to go to grad school for engineering. So then it was like, you're just wasting the money that I did have to pay for, the undergrad. So I worked. And that's why I took the job at GE and took other jobs after that because I wanted to go to grad school, but I kind of had to plan to be financially ready and kind of save all my dollars from my jobs there and stay in Philly. Um, and I knew I wanted to be an attorney. I actually knew I wanted to be an attorney before wanting to be an engineer. And I wanted to be an attorney for kids. And at the time when I did finally go to law school, I was married. And the question was posed to me, well, kids don't pay legal bills. And now we we have all this student debt that we're going to have until we're 100, so we got to start chipping away. So I think a lot of my decisions early on were made for practical reasons, and kind of thinking it forced me to have a plan. Like I can't do exactly what I want to do right away, so there's a delayed gratification and has to be a strategy. Now I can look back and say, and I think the engineering school is much better at this now than they were back then. Although I will say Dr. Joseph Bodonia, who was the dean part of that time that I was there, and he just recently passed away. He was awesome. Um, he wrote something in the late 80s along these lines that talk about the benefits of the training and the education you get on a broader scale. So don't limit yourself to what you major in. So if you major in accounting, don't say, I need to be an accountant. You look at what the accounting classes teach you in terms of how to think, how to approach a problem, how to strategize, how to be creative, how to look at the resources you have and how to provide a service to someone. And then that opens up a whole lot more opportunities for you in terms of the types of careers that you can look at. Because I think if you do research on people who are very senior in their careers, they run organizations or companies, nonprofits, some of their undergraduate degrees have absolutely nothing else to do on its face with what they do now. But I'm sure it kind of helped to prepare them along the way. So I think that helps if you think about what you're doing now, especially if what you're doing now is not exactly what you want, but think about the benefits it can give you in terms of preparation for where you want to be. So that played a role in my thought process. But at the time, I'm not going to lie and say I was so mature that I kind of knew all of that stuff. I was just kind of like, okay, I got to get to step B. I got to get to step C. I'm in law school. Oh my God, now I got a house full of babies. I'm trying to graduate law school. I got to get a job. Okay, we got to get a job. We got to move here. We got to do this. I just had to plan. I had to strategize, and I had to be open to opportunities that I might not have initially planned to take advantage of.
No, that's really great to hear. I think the whole idea of the delayed gratification, having that plan is so important and so insightful, kind of having that strategy to get there. Similar kind of experience from my piece where I also chose a more pragmatic route. When I wanted to go to school, I knew I wasn't a math and science kind of guy, but I wanted some kind of job that was a little bit more stable and predictable. And my parents just wanted me to go to a college. They kind of weren't too picky. They were just like, if you graduate with a degree, like that's great. So I thought maybe business was a good fit. And frankly, Wharton just had a really great reputation. And so I applied early decision to kind of be like, well, how can you turn down the best business school? You know, how can you turn them down if you get in? So I ended up luckily getting in. And so I had no idea why I wanted to do business. It was more that this was a pragmatic path. It seemed that there was some level of flexibility in terms of I didn't know what I actually wanted to do with a business degree. I just knew kind of business broadly. So having that flexibility of graduating from Wharton, and like it was definitely a bit of that prestige element that really kind of attracted me, if I'm going to be completely frank. But I think that in terms of like when I try to take that degree and then turn it into a career, I definitely had some struggles where I just interviewed because I didn't even know how to really go about the interview process. So I just looked at what everyone else was doing. And frankly, in Wharton, it's a pretty homogenous mindset. It's like I want to be a management consultant, or I want to be a banker, or I want to work in private equity, and that's how you measure success. And I would go to those events and I just didn't feel like it was for me, both kind of from a lifestyle perspective, are these the type of people that feel like they would want someone like me involved with them? So it was kind of a challenge, kind of feeling like, do I belong here as well? So for me, I did exactly the same thing. So I ended up doing more for the tech path. It seemed like a bit of more progressive industry, kind of seemed up and coming. The work-life balance seemed a little bit better. So that's kind of why I decided to head a little bit more in that direction. And frankly, I just kind of took the first job that I got, if I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't really have a great plan. I just knew that I wanted to start making money. I didn't want to live with my parents. Like it was just like after graduating and moving back in with my parents, that was the biggest motivator for me to find a job. I was like, I need to get out of here. Like
Yes.
I can't do this anymore. So I actually ended up going to a job that I only lasted at for about 2 or 3 months before they did a round of layoffs. I was the newest person, so wasn't excluded from that. Jumped over to LinkedIn, which ended up being a much better opportunity in terms of the environment, the resourcing, kind of everything there. And kind of from there, I just tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And frankly, for me, I learn best by doing. So I kind of recognized that within myself, and I figured that, okay, I hear a lot about this thing called product management. And there was some stuff going on in my life, kind of with my mom being sick and getting treatment. So healthcare was an industry that was kind of appealing to me in that sense as well. So I thought, okay, if I can try to do something that has a bit of social impact, kind of working in the Medicaid space, but at the same time trying to go in the direction of product management, that to me was kind of, okay, two birds with one stone. So I took a leap of faith and left a very stable, kind of more cushy job at LinkedIn and jumped out to this tiny little startup where it was just the company was everyone sitting in one room, and it was like kind of a huge shift from like this huge multi-global corporation to this teeny tiny little startup. Was there trying to figure out like is product the right fit for me, because in the tech space people are always talking about product management being this like gold standard, right? You are like a mini CEO, you're all of these things. And actually being in it, I found out, okay, that while as, again, kind of the idea of chasing prestige wasn't really what I wanted, right? It was like, oh, I achieved this goal, I checked this box, but I don't want to be a product manager. It was a lot of responsibility, but not a lot of the decision. And I feel like I didn't have the ability to kind of pull the levers that I wanted to pull to actually drive the results I was looking for. So I ended up looking for a bit of a pivot there. So I switched into more product management or product marketing, I'm sorry. So rather than focusing on the development of the product, which is very much like you build the foundation, and then you build the next layer, and then the next layer, and the next layer. And that's just not really what I was looking for. I wanted something more dynamic, something more kind of like people oriented, I guess. So I switched over to product marketing, which is more working with sales, figuring out kind of the messaging, understanding the market, and reacting to kind of what's going on and what the competitive landscape looks like. And I decided that I had a bit of a Goldilocks moment where LinkedIn felt too big. I left right around the time Microsoft swallowed it up. Then this other company felt too small. So I was like, okay, maybe I should find a company between the sizes of these two. And so when I joined Stack Overflow, it was about, I think, 250, 300 people. And it was like, it felt like that nice compromise where I was still able to know the people I was working with, but at the same time, they had some resourcing behind them.
Thank you so much for sharing. We have some other questions, but I also want to bring up if anybody has any questions as we're going through this that pop into your mind, feel free to put it into the Q&A or chat section and we'll bring it up at the end. Um, Funny enough, I actually had to use Stack Overflow yesterday to make sure that I was doing my R coding right, so it has already come in handy. But something that we wanted to talk about is in terms of this pivot that you've talked about. Um, Something related. How has how did you balance family and your career when making decisions on like moving to another city or for these careers choices that you're making in terms of going to Texas if you weren't there originally? I know you talked about moving out, not living with your parents, but how did that factor into your decision?
Sure. My answer is probably a little shorter. For me, it was kind of just that I was fortunate enough that I didn't really have like to support my parents or
I'm
anything like
sorry.
that. I had the
I'm sorry to
ability to.
interrupt. Can everybody make sure that they're muted, please? If you're typing, we can hear it on there. I apologize, Ben, but I just want to make sure that everybody's muted. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, I was just fortunate I didn't have to kind of support my parents. For me, it was more just about being able to pay my loans and having a sense of independence. Still don't really have a lot of the familiar commitments, so it was really like the only challenges I had were more kind of like managing expectations and that piece, which kind of after I got older and was able to demonstrate that I had some financial security, that wasn't too much of a challenge for me. But
Thank you. How about you, LaRhonda?
Hmm. I've lived so many places that I have relatives who would say that they refuse to write down my address. Moved around a lot. Um, I think I chose to move initially while I was single. That I went where the job was. And I wasn't, like Ben, my goal was not to get a job and, back home. And that's where I would be kind of near family. And, that's what a lot of people do. A lot of my friends have done it. And, all this time, that's where they've been, is very close to family. And I think it's probably a more exciting option depending on the city or the urban environment or wherever it is, be out in the country, or if you want to be in Manhattan and that's where you're from, when you're from those kind of places, it's a little different, I guess. Um, but my thought was, okay, I'm young. I need to, be in one of the biggest cities and, do my thing. And, I like to hang out at the time too. And, so I would work and party and hang out and, save some money. Um, because what else did I have to do but work and work, and that was it pretty much. Those were my responsibilities, my major responsibilities rather. Um, and I got married young, just a few years out of undergrad. So we kind of went to graduate school. We traveled, moved together, and went to grad school together. Had started having kids while in grad school. People would say, "We try to do everything all at the same time." And it was like, well, with the hopes that I would get a rest and it would all be done. Um, but I think it was the choice to move was one driven by practical concerns. You go where the job is, especially if you work for a big company and they have a lot of different locations. I would say, um, and I've had other friends say that it's harder to look back and say, I wish I had tried Miami, or I wish I had tried Chicago or Omaha or wherever, because the fewer responsibilities you have outside of yourself as the primary one, the easier it is to go, hang out for a few months. Maybe you don't like it, transfer or work for another company after that. I mean, you don't have to register anybody for school. You don't have to make sure people get shots and there's a good hospital nearby, all that stuff when you're traveling kind of in a group, and most of whom you're responsible for. Um, and so, that's why I kind of traveled around. And then later we went for the job. I went for my spouse's job. And that's what took us to probably 6 or 7 different states, and then two different countries, 3 different cities. So I guess 3 continents. Um, and there we traveled in a group. There were 5 of us. Um, I think, we looked at it as an adventure, not permanent, although the moves were far, very far from where we were from. Um, but I think it helped to look at it like, for the time being, this is where we are. This is an adventure. We're going to make the most of it and kind of go to the next place. And, um, you know, it just happened that actually, aside from where I'm from, Texas happens to be the place where I've been the longest. Um, I think about 10 years here, which is a really long time compared to all the other places I've been to. And that's kind of how the decisions were made. I think I can say, I don't look at a place and say, I should have tried that place. 'Cause sometimes I look and go, oh man, I tried too many places. So I like that. That's where I am.
Thank you so
Both of
much.
you
Mhm.
for your answer. I think it was definitely very helpful to see. I know sometimes location dictates a lot of the decisions we made, especially out of undergrad, deciding where to go right after you end your studies, or even deciding where to go to school. That initial entry point kind of decides on whether you want to stay close to family from home, and then as you progress through your career, you have your own family to worry about. So definitely, it was nice to put these real considerations into the context of these pivots in your career. So definitely very insightful. Yeah, we can continue with the moderated discussion. Sort of wondering what advice you have for students who to pursue their passions outside of when it's not related to their career field. So, for example, they have a cause they really care about, but they are not necessarily able to like reconcile those passions with their career and be able to put them together. How do you recommend they sort of are able to pursue these passions when it's not able to be through a traditional career pathway?
It's a question, I guess, um, include a consideration, or does it exclude considerations or situations where the person can have the career and the passion at the same time? Are we not talking about those situations?
We can sort of kind of wanted to give more insight into how to reconcile if you're not able to really pursue your passion through your
Like
job,
for a
but
living?
definitely both of them. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I would say if it's your passion, um, see if you can do it while you work. Someone said to me once that, when you're really young, and this was relative, this person was older than me, and so really young to them, was in college, just out of college, probably the first, you know, 7 to 9 years out of college, that every job is not necessarily a career. You might not know that yet. So look at it as an experience. So if there's something that's really your passion, like you just love playing the electric guitar. It's just you just love it. Um, Still do it. You still have to pay bills, so you still work. If you have few other responsibilities, pretty much that's what fills your time, and if that's what fills your heart, then you're not really missing out. I have a classmate who, now, aside from her very busy job for the city of New York, she sings jazz different places around the country and around the world. That's her thing. Um, I would say to the greatest extent possible, you want to do them because you can't let go of that part of yourself permanently. There may be times where your job is so consuming, just like undergrad or grad school is so consuming, you feel like all you do is sleep, eat, and study. Sometimes you sleep, eat, and work. That's it. But I would say don't give it up altogether. There are just a lot of people that I know who are retired, who that is the thing that some of them have gone back to, is that thing that they loved, some of them when they were kids. Like, they pick up a trumpet now and they want to grab some friends from grammar school. They want to play, and, or, somebody wants to go climb mountains, or, so I would just say don't let it go.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And from my perspective, I would say that something that I found really useful was to engage with people who share your passion. So that way you have some sense of community there. That way you can kind of have that sense of guidance. And for me personally, there are a few different things I'm interested in, but I don't know how to make careers out of them. So like the idea of social equity and things like that. And it's just what I've been trained in, and the pivot I haven't quite kind of mapped out yet. So the way I've been approaching my career is that I'm just trying to develop the skills and the network and kind of understand that, okay, I know how to build a product. I know how to market a product and sell it. And so that could probably apply to other things. Like if I ever want to move into development for a nonprofit, at least I know how to go about kind of like the messaging, the piecings there. So I don't know if I have a great answer. I think LaRhonda's is a little better, but the way I've been thinking about it is just really kind of, if you have an end state in mind and you don't know how to get there, as long as you're directionally going the right way and you feel like you're building the right blocks and you're getting some progress in that direction, even if it's not as much as you'd like to see, it's again kind of the idea of the delayed gratitude. So I think, or delayed gratification. So I think that that's the advice that I would give.
Yeah, I think, Ben, I think you're right on. I mean, I would say you can look for volunteer opportunities that are related to the passion that puts you in touch with other people who share your passion, that helps you gain connections. Something may not, a full-time paid opportunity may not come to fruition for maybe 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, the world gets smaller the older you get and the more senior you get in your career. And after a while, everybody knows everybody, or they're only two, three people away. And somebody could call you up later and say, hey, we were in this group together back then. And now, I'm chair of the United Way, and we're looking for somebody in, this city or whatever. And then you can take those skills, and kind of transition there. One of the nonprofits that I'm on the board of volunteer now, we have what's called a Young Leaders program. So you're not ready to be on the board, but this is a program that helps people prepare for leadership positions in volunteer organizations, wherever those organizations may be, whether it's ours or some other one much later on. Because, sometimes there's a question of how do I join a nonprofit? I've been volunteering for a while, but how do I get to the next level where I start to make decisions where, if I am good at, you guys say coding, we said programming back in the day, or if I am good at product development, or if I am good at strategic planning, how do I get to do that for a group whose mission is one that I love? And it's those kind of organizations you could be looking out for now. And now it's easier to find them on different websites, and see if they have those programs for younger people at the start of their careers to join and to go through these training workshops where they kind of teach you how to establish those networks, how to pick where you want to invest your time, and kind of meet other people with those same passions, and kind of prepare you for those kind of positions in nonprofits.
Thank you. And one of the main reasons why we wanted to have this conversation is the fact that there is the big pandemic that is impacting hiring processes, or people that had internships that now have to do them remotely or have them canceled completely. What advice do you have for people who are in this situation trying to navigate their career choices, or job searching, or needing to take on a position or a job that they don't necessarily want to pursue in the future? And are there any comparable times, whether it be times of hiring freezes that you've experienced, the 2008 housing crisis, or whatever, but trying to make those connections, and words of advice for students during this time period?
You want me to go, Ben, or I'll wait till after you?
Go ahead. I graduated after the financial crisis, so I'm not sure I could give that perspective there.
Yeah, one, one of my kids told me the other day, we were out power walking, and I really thought I was doing something. I was working up a sweat, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling quite young. And she said, well, Mom, we're in Texas. They want to open things up. You might want to remind them that you might be higher risk, and because you're elderly. And I thought, And it kind of brought it home. It's like, okay, I guess it's all relative, because to you, yeah, okay, whatever. But I thought, and I said, and then I saw this was one of the questions, and I thought, wow, there are a number of difficult economic times that I have lived through, quite a number of them. So relative to you guys who are still an undergrad, yeah, I'm quite a bit older. I can name three right off the top. 1991, 1992, I remember because I got married in 92. And it was a really bad economic downturn. A lot of people at the wedding couldn't afford to give gifts. It was all they could do just to get there. And that's why I remember around that time that there was one. There was another one in just after the dot-com bubble in 2001, around in there. I had just gone to my second law firm, I believe, second or third law firm, and I was focusing on intellectual property. So most of my clients were the beginnings of the internet boom, those, smaller companies. If you look back then, a lot of them in the, Manhattan, Connecticut, Palo Alto, a lot of them were in my client group. And you're a young attorney. One of the things, aside from being a grinder and doing all that work, and is that you're supposed to bring in business, and you're supposed to bring in business clients who can pay their bills. But when that hit, they were still generating and still needing work, and the U.S. Patent Office does not let you stop working on a patent midstream because your client now cannot afford to pay. That's detrimental to the client. You must continue, but your client has told you, we cannot pay you. Or we can pay, but you're last on the list. We got to pay the landlord first. So this was real. And then so you're at risk for losing your job, because as one partner told a group of us, you're costing me more than you're earning. It was like, ooh, okay. So, so that was tough. And then a number of, let me see, we were overseas in China during the recession. That was interesting because it was much worse here than it was over there. And I think inflation was getting to be a big deal over there because a lot of the younger Chinese, this was the first generation they were able to kind of have the freedom to pursue whatever, a lot of different occupations. They could have their own apartments in Beijing and Shanghai. And so it was kind of prosperity, and a lot of foreigners, that's what we were all called, and we were foreigners, were bringing business over there. And one of my jobs was to help companies who had just established over there, establish their intellectual property programs to protect the IP they were bringing over to China. And they were hiring up a lot of people. And so it helped to give a lot of different people now great income. And then when the recession hit, it hit over here first, and it was severe. So it's interesting to see that happening when you're outside the country, to see how other places report on what's going on here. When we finally got back here, there was like a mass exodus of Americans out of Beijing and Shanghai then to go back home, but a lot of people weren't going back home to jobs. They just had to leave China because you don't have a visa anymore, you don't have a job. So in each of those situations, I had to look for a job. I think a couple of them I got laid off. And actually, when I first started working for GE, so that was the beginning of 89, because GE let me start before I officially finished Penn. which was great because I was in so much debt. I was like, oh my God, thank you. I'll study, I'll work, I'll do whatever. So that was awesome. But I had the unfortunate experience of sitting on the floor with a number of engineers who were always told to sit by the phone and wait for the phone call that told you that you'd be laid off. That's an awful environment, awful. Um, so I worked through all of those. Two of them, I did get laid off. And what I will say about having to look for a job in that kind of environment with either no experience or very little experience is that, again, it sucks. But you have to look at things from a practical perspective. You probably will have to take a job. If you're lucky enough to get one offered, you will have to take a job that you don't like. And you should. Because now, I for the last probably 10, 15 years, I interview a lot of people and bring people in to the company. And one of the things that we look for is, continued employment. And you have to explain gaps. And we'd rather hear that you were working at a job and you really didn't like it too much, and that's why you only stayed for 3 months or 6 months, rather than I was out of work for a year and a half because I got offers, but they just weren't aligned with my interests. Because in any job, even the one that you love, there are going to be times when you have projects that do not align with your interests, that bore you, that are tedious or whatever. It's just part of working. Even if it's your own company, it's part of what you have to do. So I would say persevere, be willing to take the job that you don't like, especially if that's the job you got. My first job out of undergrad, times were tough. I took the job at GE. I worked on a factory floor right there in Philly. The building is not GE anymore. It's, what was it, 31st, 32nd year in Chestnut? I forget what it is now. It might be part of Drexel's campus, but that was old GE factory. And I thought I didn't graduate from an Ivy League school to come to work on a factory floor. It was, blah, 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 blah. But when times got tough, it was like, well, it's nice that I had this job. It's okay, And then that helps you be more attractive to the next place. Because nobody wants to hire somebody who they believe when things get tough or the job is not so glamorous or whatever, they just want to quit. I mean, I worked for the railroad. I had been a lawyer for more than 20 years at that point. And I was told, okay, it's now your turn to put on the hard hat and boots. You're going to go up to Kansas and you're going to learn how to connect cars and walk on the ballast and pull the horn on a locomotive. I was like, I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I don't know anything about that. I went to law school. This is not what I do. But their thought was, well, you need to learn where the paycheck comes from because we're a railroad. I was like, okay, I get it. And off I went. I got my hard hat and my boots. I actually went up there 2-3 times. It's just, perseverance, being practical, and knowing that whatever situation you're in, it doesn't mean you're going to be in that situation forever. This is not going to last forever. It's terrible. It's here now. It is terribly affecting people's employment. I work for an oil refiner. You guys have heard about oil. It's at a point where some place had to give it away. That's what the pricing means right now. Our business wants to know that people are not just going to quit. On the other hand, they're not promising that they're going to keep you employed no matter what either. But while you are employed, you're expected to do whatever it takes to help. And that means if they need you to type papers, they need you to run to the post office, they need you to be the only one on the floor and turn on the lights, aside from doing your regular work and helping out with in a department that you don't know anything about. All of these things I've had to do. This is what you do. And so I think being able to persevere in this environment kind of helps to prepare you for that. So I would say if you're lucky enough to get a job where somebody is going to pay you a regular salary and it's not an awful, terrible type job that goes against your values, you probably don't want to turn your nose up to it because things are tough for the companies right now.
Thank you
I
so
think that's
much for your
great
answer.
advice.
It was awesome advice. Really appreciate you contextualizing the current crisis to let our attendees know the situation that we face. I do want to be mindful of time. It's almost 3, but we did get some Q&A questions. So just kind of wanted to ask a few of those, being mindful of time, and then from there we can wrap up the event. So one of the questions I got from a student was, so how much should compensation weigh in when making that first decision to for your first job, and sort of if it's a brand name, how much should that also weigh into that decision? Having a brand name on your resume is a concern sometimes as well. Whether you should take the job if it might not necessarily align. Sort of some insight on that.
I can give like the 30-second version of this. So I would say that don't focus on compensation as much as focusing on developing your skills, because the compensation can kind of come down the line. And then in terms of regards to brand names, frankly, having the brands like LinkedIn, having Stack Overflow on my resume has definitely helped me get attention. But again, not the be all end all. I think it's about having the skills and the network as well.
Yeah, I would give the short answer. I agree completely with Ben. And again, let me give you an example of, you know, way back in the late 80s, Microsoft was not the brand that it is today. I had classmates in the engineering school who we called like pioneers, who had decided to take that offer from Microsoft and go out to Washington. Yeah, more of us probably should have thought about that too, because they did quite well. But when they went to Microsoft, Microsoft was not the highest paying company by far. It was not the brand that it is now. It was up and coming, but I think they went because they looked at the environment, they looked at what they were going to learn, they looked at the broader opportunity they were going to get. They were definitely not going to be a cog in the wheel because there weren't that many there. And it was something new and exciting. And yeah, you know, it was expensive at first. Um, I'll say I've had jobs where the pay wasn't that great, but I loved what I did. And then I had jobs where early on, like right out of um, shoot, the first one, right out of undergrad with GE, I probably got paid more than almost all of my friends who graduated out of Wharton, let alone engineering. My first job out of law school, I worked for a firm, patent firm in Midtown Manhattan. The amount of money they paid us was just insane. However, it was the most mind-numbing uh, work where every day you were reminded what a partner did. One partner didn't even call us by our name and told us we were fungible. We were like well-dressed little, you know, minions, and we carried the briefcases to the court. We wrote and worked however long he said. I remember one night I worked till 2 a.m. He said, I don't have time to read your brief right now, but you can't leave. I'll get to you later. He got to me by 5. I left, went back to my house at 7 to take a shower. I got back at 10. He wanted to know why I wasn't still there at 9. I mean, it's just insane. But the money was like insane as well. So obviously, don't let money drive you. I think it's you have to look at what you're going to learn, what the environment is. Um, they need to have some good benefits. I know that may not be important to you all at this stage, but it's important. It really is. And I can tell you for a company, that's where they spend a ton of their money on their employees is the benefits. And that's what you want. So I would say let those things drive you. It's a brand name, that's great, but if not, you'll be all right.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. We can wrap up the event now. I also wanted to do a plug. You can find LaRhonda and Ben on Penn Flash. I will drop the link to the Penn Flash platform in the chat if you want to check it out. I would definitely encourage you to sign up for Penn Flash. It's going to be a very useful tool. It'll help connect with alumni and get your questions answered. It's a Figly platform, so definitely everyone on the platform relates and resonates with your experience at Penn. But yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. And yeah, anything else to add?
Hi, everyone.
Nothing.
I think you're on mute. Okay, there we go.
All right. I just wanted to also thank everyone for coming and especially thank our speakers, LaRhonda and Ben. I learned a lot, and I was also very much comforted by some of your words. So I'm really excited that you all have joined the platform as well. And I hope that students can take advantage and also reach out to you all. Ben and LaRhonda, can you just let students know that you look forward to communicating with them on the platform? So that way they feel more encouraged to reach out.
Oh, yes, yes. And I still have to get all of my information. Oh, did it?
You're in. Yep.
Oh, okay. I still have to get all my information into Penn Flash. I started on there, and then another call came in. But definitely, I guess through is that the vehicle they can reach me through, or should I? I guess that's it.
Yes,
Okay.
they
Yeah.
can reach
So
you
that
there. Mhm.
yeah, so that will work. Yeah, don't hesitate to send me any questions or anything. I will try to answer questions as best I can, and whatever I don't relate to, I have you know, two Quakers out of my kids, two of them are Quakers, so I'm sure they can help me with things that are different now for those who are still on campus than back when I was there. But I would say, these are very trying times, and I know that it's very scary um, what's going on now. But I would say keep plugging away and persevere. Throw that resume out there with a broad, broad, broad stroke, and just know that you can always change. You're not stuck in any job or whatever you happen to take to get through these times. The goal is to get through these times.
Yeah, and also I'm definitely available to help as well. I would say that right now the best things you can do are control what you can control. A lot of things are out of your control. Don't spend too much time thinking about that. Making sure that you have a focused plan in your outreach. So it's good to cast a wide net, but there are some that you're going to want to prioritize and you'll want to network, try to get referrals and try to get advice as well. So just make sure that you have that plan of action and you're not just kind of blindly applying and just hoping things will work out.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, this
All
is a great
right.
platform.
Lewis, would you have any last words to close this, Lewis, real quick before we go? I know everybody's logging off, but I'd like to give you that last spot, if you will.
Or I was just gonna say that at least for Sam and me, we're both seniors now. We're entering this interesting and field of time, and these words really have helped us get through and learn a lot. So hopefully it has helped whether you're currently a senior or a freshman or a sophomore. The Flash platform is not just for seniors looking to go into the future career fields. If you are a freshman, we highly encourage you to reach out to these alumni to get those connections and learn more, not just about what is a job in the future, but what was their time like at Penn? What do they have passions in? What are their hobbies? And learning about these non-tangential stuff that will help you also grow as a person.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you to our alumni. Thank you for Lizette, Sam, and Lewis for pulling this together. My name is Toyce. I encourage you again just to plug into Penn Flash. It is in the chat box. Have a great afternoon. Be safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.